before we get into the actual business and what it took to really get that off the ground, let me have you just tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the business, who you are as a person, things you like to do for fun, things like that.
Sure. My name's Deeanne Akerson, and I live in Oceanside, California, with my husband of 18 years and our two boys, who are now 6 and 8. Um, Prior to starting a business and having kids, I would say that I had deep hobbies in backpacking, world travel, cooking, swimming, running. Um, but now most of my hobbies center around the business. It kind of like between business and parenting, it takes up all free time. But I do still love to run for exercise. And I did a marathon 2 months ago in basically my hometown, the Carlsbad Marathon.
Yeah, for
So when
sure.
I'm not working or parenting, you'll usually find me out running the streets of South Oceanside in Carlsbad.
Definitely. So, what were you doing work wise before the business? Since it's not necessarily, you weren't, right out of high school starting a business,
Oh,
some
right,
prodigy
right.
entrepreneur.
No, in fact, if you would have told me that I was going to be an entrepreneur or have my own business out of college, I would have straight out just laughed at you because that is not really part of my DNA. It's something that I had to really lean into and like learn how to be. I am a high school math teacher by trade, and I taught high school math, mostly Algebra 2 and AP Statistics for 12 years, right here in Carlsbad. And I just love math. I love numbers. I love problem solving, and I loved teaching. And so, business and entrepreneurship was a whole new world for me. But I think like having the skills of being a teacher, like that, nothing's going to rile me. Like we're going to get through this, and the natural problem solving has definitely helped as I've gotten into it.
Absolutely. And I'm fairly confident, but correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first business you have created and set out to really make in the world.
It is absolutely my first.
Alrighty,
Um,
so no predecessor businesses that we need to get into any potentially down and dirty details about.
None unless you count the time when I was a kid and I like sold bread door to door to my neighbors. That was my very small bit of entrepreneurship as a child. There was a famous bakery in the area called Dudley's Bakery. And my sister and I had horses, and in order to pay for their hay and their grain, we were a pretty poor family out in the country, and we had to go door to door to sell loaves of bread to our neighbors. And we'd add $1 to each loaf, so it was a pretty good upsell at the time. But that's the only other business, if you could call it a business, back when I was a kid.
Yeah, for sure. So even as a child, even if you wouldn't necessarily consider yourself an entrepreneur at heart, you had that spirit there in some form or another.
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely. So let's talk about the generation of the idea of the business. Where did it come from? What inspired you? How'd you theorize the whole thing?
Well, it came completely by surprise. Like I didn't realize I was developing an idea. What happened? It was 5 years ago, and my youngest was 1. So I have two boys. They're 6 and 8 now. And when the youngest was 1, he was still breastfeeding about 10 times a day, which is not totally uncommon for some kids. And I I had nursed my first until he was 2, and I knew I would probably be nursing him for quite a while longer. And so I just had it with my nursing clothes, particularly my pajamas. It was the winter time. It was actually December, and I had nursing pajamas on my Christmas list, and I didn't get them. My birthday's the next month in January. I put them on my birthday list, and I still didn't get them. So my husband, being the nice guy that he was, said, "You know what, Deanne, I know you hate shopping. Let's get a babysitter. I'll take you shopping. We'll get those nursing pajamas." And we went to all the stores nearby us, like Nordstrom's, Target, Macy's, Penny's, Sears, everything. And we came up completely empty-handed, like not a single pair of pajamas that could function for breastfeeding. I was just looking for like a pair with a really stretchy neckline or something. I wasn't even looking for like secret breastfeeding openings. I just wanted a pair of warm pajamas. And so over the next couple of weeks, I ordered a bunch online. And what actually happened was I was in the office, this room right here. We'd finally gotten the kids to sleep one night, and I was trying on, I probably had 5 different pairs of pajamas. And I was like, man, I really like the bottoms of this one, and I really like the top of that one, but this fabric is amazing. And you know what I would really do? I would like make this crossover right here. And my husband was sitting at the desk, and he was actively looking for an idea to start. He does have a background in business. He has his MBA from San Diego State, and he was literally looking for a business idea at the time. And I said, hey, what if we made nursing and maternity clothes? I know exactly what moms want. They want something that's comfortable, that actually works, and that they feel put together in, even if they don't get out of their pajamas all day. And I said, what if we made clothes? And he like kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And then over the next couple of days, he ran some numbers and found out there was actually a really nice market for that. And so that's literally how it came about. I just was searching for a pair of nursing pajamas, and my husband was looking for a business idea, and the two ideas coalesced right at home.
Definitely. So it was born out of a personal necessity, you could say.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was our first product, and they're still one of our most well loved. The Davy pajamas were the first item that I thought of. I worked with a pattern maker up in LA to design, and they're still one of our best loved pair of loungewear in our collection.
Absolutely. So let's talk actually getting the business off the ground now that we've established where the idea came from. Starting up, it's going to take some money to get a business off the ground. Did you do any fundraising, investment spheres, anything like that to raise capital for the business?
Yeah, not at all. I think in the beginning, I definitely wasn't thinking that big. To me, I was just bringing one product to market. When we started, it was definitely not like I'm going to build a whole brand and a company and be a movement for new and expectant moms. It was, I just really needed a pair of nursing pajamas, and I figured other people were in that similar situation. So in the beginning, I just needed to figure out how to fund that first order, which was $7,000. And so we had personal savings for that. And, there were some other incidentals along the way, the registrations, the website, we had to pay a graphic designer to do some initial branding. And I want to say all in, we probably had to bootstrap about $30,000. But in my mind, it wasn't enough to figure out how to fundraise. I wouldn't have even known where to start. So it was a matter of going into our personal savings. We lived really frugally. I was a teacher, and we had enough. We were able to scrape together, the 30,000 to really, get off the ground. And so it didn't even occur to me that we would fundraise at that point.
For sure. So essentially, homegrown, done by yourself, without the support of anybody else, you manage to scrap together what you need and truly make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the sheer definition of literally bootstrapped. I mean, if we had failed, it would have been terrible, but at the same time, we wouldn't have had to have a bankruptcy. We just, there would have been all of our savings. I'd been, a high school teacher for 11 and a half years at that point. And, it would have been sad, but it wouldn't have, set us back, to the point of bankruptcy or something. So
For
it
sure.
was scary though. I mean, I think for anybody that's, thinking about putting their whole savings, what they've worked on for, any number of years, like it feels risky. So, I definitely like felt that risk of, well, what if we fail? And I think
Absolutely.
once I recognized, like, if we fail, we're still going to be okay. I had to go to that worst case scenario to know that it was okay, like to go ahead and start. And I know there are some people out there that are always optimists, and they, don't go to the worst case. But for me, I needed to know that I could live with the worst case, and then I could go in like with courage.
Absolutely. So first few years establishing the business, obviously you got the money together, got it off the ground, made sure that you could get that first order out there. Going from there, what were those first kind of like 2, 3 years like, truly, when the brand was in its infancy, kind of finding customers, potentially developing new products? What were the first few steps you really took in building up the business?
Well, the first few years were definitely a ton of work for my husband and I. I was I had a leave of absence, an extended maternity leave from my position teaching school. He was still working a day job where he was president of a small design and development agency here in North County, San Diego. And so it was almost like a hobby. You know, we were putting in 3, 4 hours at night, but it couldn't support us. So those first years were just about getting. Actually, it wasn't the first years to get to that point of traction, but it was a solid probably 10 or 12, maybe 14 months of we have to just get some revenue. Okay, like cash is like the oxygen that your business needs in order to fuel growth. And without it, like we couldn't grow. So it was just about getting enough cash to get going. And so you don't want to quit your day job. And we hadn't fundraised. So the only option was to work nights and weekends and, just get it done. So the first steps, what I'm thinking is like, what product, like what can I really bring people that will produce, some revenue so that we can really build this. And in retrospect, what I was dreaming of in the winter that, 5 years ago was this comfortable pair of pajamas. By the time I brought them to market, it was mid-June. And although pajamas are comfortable in mid-June, they're not really top of mind for people. Plenty of people just aren't sleeping in pajamas in June. You're certainly not buying them as gifts for people like you're at Christmas time. So it was not the product that would bring us that revenue, that oxygen that could allow us to really grow the brand from infancy. So what the steps I'm taking. My husband is researching different products that really have more demand, and I'm just thinking from the life of a nursing mom, like what do I really need right now? And so I turned my attention to bras, and after I developed a couple of our lounge bras, the French terry bra, the organic cotton bra, we brought those to market later that fall. And that was really when we finally got enough traction to realize, like, okay, like we can do this. We don't have to work 2 jobs forever. Like there will be a place for Kindred Bravely, as long as we focus on really the high demand items first.
Definitely. So, at what point would you say that you fully, I guess, committed, to put it in a single word, and truly went in all in on making the business kind of your day to day?
Yeah, it was. So for my husband, he gave his notice at his employers almost a year after we incorporated. It might have been like 11 months. And then for me, I held out a little while longer. I was still on that extended maternity leave, leave of absence from work, and I waited maybe another 4 months before I gave my official resignation. And it felt good to have those two events staggered, because it was like, okay, he's closed the door on his income, but if things really fall apart, I can go back on contract mid-year and like save us from ruin. So again, it was like that, knowing what's the worst that could happen, knowing that I could face the worst, and then that gave me courage, like to step in even more. So it was, yeah, right around a year, 14, maybe 15 months for me.
For sure. So you mentioned kind of discovering the high demand items that could really get the business moving and generate revenue. Would you say there are any other big breakthroughs in those first few years that really kind of made you find that aha moment of, yes, this is going to work?
I think it's a matter of finding not just the product, because someone told me early on when I was when we were forming Kinder Bravely, it was Jeff Hoffman. I was at a business conference, and he was one of the founders of Priceline. And he had a really fantastic speech that he gave. And he said, never fall in love with your products, because they're going to get copied, they're going to get knocked off. You never know. They're going to become irrelevant. But fall in love with your customers, and that will fuel you to day after day, like bring the things to market that they truly need. So I think that was a really pivotal and key understanding, because when I did start Kindred Bravely, it was actually with one product in mind. And so that was a big shift for me. It wasn't just the pair of nursing pajamas that I was bringing to the world. Like, I was truly falling in love with our customers, because I love moms, and I think, encouraging them is, they're bringing to life the next generation. And when I really again looked at what we're doing and why we're doing it, it really helped me to form a lot of the DNA of who we are as a company. And so I think that was a really critical mind shift for me. And then in terms of something else that was in the beginning, I also didn't realize, like, everyone that's starting a company, you have to have something to leverage. Otherwise there's a lot of people, we all have the same number of hours in the day, potentially the same suppliers, but like, what is it that's going to make you different, and leverage that. And for me, it kind of happened by accident that we hired a part-time customer service agent. Was our first hire. We made that hire when my husband and I were getting ready to go to China for a month to visit all of the factories that we had started doing business with. We took a month with the boys, traveled all over China, and so we had to have somebody to return the emails. And at that time, it was like not even 2 or 3 hours a day, very part-time. And the only person that we could think of that would want that job is a stay-at-home mom. And so we found someone, she wanted to do it during nap time, or right after her kids went to bed. And that sort of became part of our business model of hiring work from home moms, because we didn't need full-time work for a lot of the work we needed. But we found that they were really uniquely suited to our customers. They knew the struggles they were having, how to relate with them. And so I think that was something early on that I hadn't necessarily thought of, that we fell into, but then it became a conscious choice. And I think that was that's a really important lesson for anyone starting a business, is figuring out, what asset are you going to leverage? What is it that's going to make you different from all of your competitors?
Absolutely. So you mentioned bringing in some of those customers. I guess, what did the customers look like in the beginning? Were they coming in a flood, or was it more of a trickle right off the bat?
No, definitely a trickle. In that first order of pajamas, I think we ordered 500. And I must have given away about 200 of them to friends of friends, people in my stroller strides class, my MOPS group, anybody in San Diego County. If I knew of you or knew of you and you were in, even people that were done breastfeeding, I was like, please, will you take these pajamas and leave me an honest review? We had launched on Amazon, and 5 years ago, the rules of operation were very different, and you could give away free product in exchange for an honest review. And so by the time, we were getting, quote sales, but they were actually giveaways. And I remember the first day that we'd had a sale, and I didn't remember giving a discount code to anybody. I was going to bed and I said, hey, Garrett, did you give away any codes today? Or, and we traced, and we realized, and over the course of a few minutes, that we had our first sale. Neither of us had actually given this pair of pajamas away. And it was like, it was an incredible feeling that somebody had found what I had created and they wanted to buy it. And
when was it? Sorry. When was it?
It was in June of 2015. I'd have to look up the exact date. If I were to guess, I'd say June 17 or 19. I think we launched on June 7. So within the first 10 days or 2 weeks, we actually had an organic sale. And so by was it? Yes, it was absolutely a trickle. It was even less than a trickle. It was drip. Okay, that's it for 2 days, 3 days. Drip, there's another drip. It was really slow to start. And then, I remember tracking customers for months, and it would be like in the handful, in the dozens. And then somewhere along the way, obviously we stopped counting, and that's a really nice place to be at.
For sure.
Did you
So,
do any marketing? I'm sorry. Did you do any marketing or other than giving the pajamas away?
That was the main marketing that during launch year. We did start our website, but we really weren't trying to push any sales to kindredbravely.com at the beginning. We were really trying to leverage Amazon and the organic rankings we could find. And so I think the people that found our products were people, they definitely hadn't heard of our brand. Nobody had back then. They were people that were searching for a need. They needed a nursing bra. They needed nursing pads. And so they found us just by keyword searches. And I don't think we didn't have a marketing budget. Like, you can blow through $30,000 of marketing in a matter of minutes if you're not careful. And, that was our entire startup budget for, I don't know, probably the first 4 to 6 months. So we didn't have any money to market. All I did was give away product.
definitely. So, I guess in a sense that free or quote unquote free marketing, we'll call it, of distributing product to friends, acquaintances, anybody that could potentially leave you that review and kind of boost those ratings. That seems to me, at least, like, while it wasn't necessarily planned, was something that really went right for you at the beginning. Were there any other kind of key points of doing things differently than others, or things that really set you apart that worked out in the end?
Well, I mentioned hiring work from home moms. That definitely was something that worked out right for us. I think the other thing that really worked out right was, a lot of the products, it really just came down to fabric and fit. And because we were a small company and I was only designing one product at a time, I could really obsess about the smallest details. Like, there would be no sewn in tag if we could have a tagless heat seal label, for example. And I would obsess over the smallest details. And for me, it was just like a problem to be solved, a set of constraints to be optimized. Like the geometry of a bra. What's going to make it comfortable for someone. And so I think something that worked out really right for us is approaching the lens of all of our products through the lens of comfort and function. When you're pregnant and breastfeeding, I mean, those are really the most important things. It's a time when your body is tender. It's, changing size, sometimes by the hour, when your breasts are going from being engorged to having just fed. And you really need a fabric and a fit that's going to work for your body. And so by concentrating on extremely comfortable fabrics and making sure to take the time to actually fit it correctly, I think that went really right for us. I also listened to customers obsessively in the beginning to find out what needs I could meet for them and what wasn't working about their current bras or underwear. And so, like, everybody says they listen to customers, but when you only have a few, you actually really, really listen to your customers. Every word. Like, I would literally read every single review and have spreadsheets about how I can improve each product. And it became like an art where I didn't have to nail it the first time. I would get 85, 90% there with the first try, and then bring a very small batch to market, and then obsessively listen to the customer input and just iterate over time. And that's the great thing about our brand. I know fashion brands can't do that because they're constantly changing, 2 seasons per year, and they have to get it perfect. But we were able to, because it's not really seasonal purchases, they're staples, but I could continually iterate and get things right just by listening to customers.
Did you put more money in as a business grow because it would mean more money?
Did we put in more money? Did we need more money? Yes. Everything requires more money. And like, especially if anybody is listening thinking that it's going to get easier the bigger you get. Let me just dispel that myth right now, because I used to be worried about, like, how long is this money going to keep us? And my husband would say, oh, well, don't worry. Like, once we reach $1 million in revenue, it will be much easier to get bank loans. And then we got to that point, inventory and cash are really tight. And for anybody that's in an inventory business, you know exactly what I'm talking about, the inverse relationship between inventory and cash. But you have to have higher inventory levels to fund the higher marketing initiatives and, just the greater market reach. And so it just gets tighter. Like, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And, we passed that $1 million threshold in the second year. And then, I'm still really worried about cash. And my husband and co-founder, Garrett, says, well, don't worry, like, at 3 years of solid financials, bank finances are much more easy, much more open. And like, there was just always one more hurdle, either more time or a higher revenue mark. And I'm here to say that it can be done, but we spend an incredible amount of time every week managing our cash. Like, the 13-week forward-looking cash flow statement, I think every company should be on one. And if they're not, if they weren't before the coronavirus, they certainly are now. But we've always been on one because we have to monitor our cash so closely. So yes, with the growth came increased cash demands and just, greater levels of complexity. Suddenly, instead of needing $7,000 like that first order, the orders are 10 and 20 times that. And so you just have greater needs for it. It's a constant balance.
So how did you get the funding? Did you get it, or how did you get it?
Yeah, so we applied for an SBA loan. I'm a big fan of SBA loans. They will loan to you before, like, by the time you've reached the markers where a bank will loan to you, you're past the point of actually needing cash. Like, so I'm a big fan of SBA. They loaned to us in the beginning. And also, while the terms weren't as great, Amazon loaned to us as well. And so if you're a business doing business on Amazon, they will take into account, through their algorithm, all, your projected sales and your history, and they will give you a loan that they believe is safe for your level of business. And we've used it several times. And while the terms are not as great as the SBC, it's faster. And so, like, whoever will loan you money, whether it's Shopify or PayPal or Amazon, like, take advantage of those when you need to. Always making sure that you're not overextended or too far leveraged. So.
Okay, so you never get equity funding. Mostly you got was loan.
We have never had equity funding. We're still 100% owned by my husband and I.
Okay.
Definitely. So we'll go into something a little positive here before I start poking some negatives at you. What would you say are the biggest perks of being in the position that you have within your business?
The biggest perks of being in the position, we're talking right now, right? Like
Right
5
now.
years in. Okay. The biggest perks are I get to set my own schedule, and I really get to do the things that I love to do. There's still some things I don't love to do. Like, I'm going to be honest, I hate dealing with insurance, but there's nobody else in the company right now that really is in the right seat to do that. So it's not that you get to get rid of everything you don't want. We still have some of those too, but I get to be as involved as I want to in product design and development. And that's still my joy and passion. And now I just don't have to do all of it myself. We have a team. And so, like, it becomes more fun because your ideas you're not the only one working on them anymore. So you can have ideas, you can get that energy and that creativity, but you have a team to support you in it as well. So that's a huge perk, I would say.
For sure. And you mentioned dealing with insurance. On that note, are there any other aspects of the business that you wish you didn't have to deal with, or things that you wish you could make magically disappear and somebody else would handle it for you?
Oh man. I've been keeping this little chart. It's like an activity inventory where you log everything you do in like 10 or 15-minute segments and try to move off. So I actually really do try to move off everything that I'm not uniquely situated to do. I think at this point, you know, I'm getting a lot of those things off my plate. My husband and I hired a president in January. And so, you know, for the first time, I'm not like, it doesn't all rest on me. Like it's fantastic to have someone that is actually, in my opinion, more experienced to lead us to the next level of where we're going. And so I think as we've grown, we've done a really good job of bringing on more team members at the right time to get those tasks off. And I'm not just talking like housekeeping, office manager kind of tasks, but things that other people are better equipped to deal with. So, you know, nothing else comes to mind. I love to pick on insurance because it's an easy one, you know.
Definitely.
Insurance or anything attorney related, like both of those, we'll throw that one out there too.
For sure.
Those are painful. Yeah.
So, on that note of growth, I guess lay us out without going into too much detail or being overly exhaustive, obviously. What were some of kind of the big milestones? When did things really start blowing up for you?
Yeah, I think they really started blowing up about 2 years in. So we founded in 2015, early in the year. And then 2 years later, in 2017, we went through our first hiring spree. And we went from a team of, I think we were a team of 5 before that. And then suddenly we were like a team of 13. It was funny because we used to have a meeting every Monday and Friday, and it was a Zoom call. And then suddenly there were like so many faces we couldn't all fit on one frame. And you know, that was definitely a big stage of growth, and it allowed us to really focus on bringing the channel of sales to our website. Prior to that, we had been really just relying on Amazon, and we really wanted to bring things. We wanted to control the whole customer experience from, you know, hearing about us advertising, you know, with content that's actually informative, coming to our website, you know, shopping, the delivery experience, the post delivery experience, being able to support people through our Facebook groups, and encouraging messaging. And that wasn't possible until we had a lot more team members. I actually, I'm probably one of the only people in this era that I don't have any social media accounts. And so we definitely had to bring on a team to manage, you know, Pinterest and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all of those things. So that was a big hiring event that helped us to really launch. And so in that year, in 2017, we actually won the Shopify Build a Bigger Business Challenge. And we were one of 8 companies selected to go in September, you know, based on the growth we had experienced from, I think it was March of that year through August. We got to go ring in the New York Stock Exchange bell. And then we got to have 5 days of mentorship on a private island with Tony Robbins and a lot of other mentors too, like the founder of Airbnb, and one of the sharks was with us in New York from Shark Tank. So that was a big milestone, like looking back, because it really showed like when we put muscle into it and, you know, really started marketing, we had the team to support that growth.
So
and we had enough products at that time. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So the social marketing was very helpful to you.
It absolutely, it was very helpful to us. You know, our target is, you know, obviously women who are pregnant and breastfeeding. You know, they're younger and they're on social, and so like meeting our customers where she is was hugely important to our growth.
For sure.
I have some questions on hiring too. What kind of skills or personality do you look for when you hire?
That's a great question. So we have a really unique hiring process, and I think it helps to bring in people that, you know, are going to elevate the team. We have this rule where you have to be better than 2 out of the last 5 hires to be considered for the next position. And it's like a way of constantly improving and upgrading our team. And how do we go about, how do we do that in a screening process? Well, we generally like advertise both on our social, like on our Facebook page. We'll also post ads on LinkedIn or other relevant places. And after an intake form, we get a lot of candidates. Like right now, we're looking for a social media manager, and I think we have 300 or 400 candidates. So it's not a problem of getting a lot of candidates. And part of that is because we are and always have been a remote team. I know a lot of people are remote right now because of coronavirus conditions, but we have always been a remote team. And so, we draw from all over the US. We also have employees in Canada and in the Philippines as well. And we look for people who really exemplify our company values. We have 4 main values. We at Kindred Bravely, we're grateful, brave, generous, and encouraging. And so we look for that when we're hiring. And one of the most unique features of our hiring process is we start with a group interview, kind of like this, and we'll have 7 to 10 candidates at a time. And it's really, you get a great feel about what it would be like to interact with this person. And especially since we are a remote team and all of our meetings have always been over Zoom calls, you have to figure out like how this person is going to be in that kind of environment. And, so we're always looking, through the lens of, which candidate is also generous, grateful, encouraging, and brave. And, the more that you attract, and I think we put that out in our messaging, so people that are drawn to that apply, and people that aren't are also equally repelled. And I think that's an important part of the hiring process. By putting out who you are, you will attract more of that, and you will also, push away those that you don't even want to get into your hiring process.
Okay. You mentioned that you also hired a president. Why did you want to hire a president? And what kind of person were you looking for?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. We weren't actually looking to hire a president. We never posted an open position or anything like that. But this person came into, I became aware of her. She actually reached out to our company. She was in the San Diego area and just trying to get to know lots of different companies in the area. We had no open positions, but I said, I'm so intrigued by her resume and, who she appears to be. Would you have coffee with me? And so she and I had coffee, and we met together for probably about 3 months, just informally having coffee now and then, sharing resources. And the more I got to know her, the more I realized that she was a perfect match for our culture as a company, and for a lot of different reasons. And we didn't have a position that would be appropriate for her, except at a very high executive level. And the more my husband and I thought about it, we have 2 kids. We have given the last 5 years of our lives, like raising our business. It's almost like our 3rd child. And I just don't want to have any regrets about, what the next 5 years look like. And so by putting someone in place that is, I have, complete trust in her leadership abilities and where she will take us. And it allows us to also still have that family life. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this specific piece, because when you have a business, it's like your family. You'll do anything for it. You're not going to see it die. But that comes at a price. It comes at a real price for your family, because all of your constant mental energy and efforts are geared toward that. And so it just became apparent, like the more I got to know her and how her values aligned with ours, and what she was capable of doing, it just made sense for both my husband and I to take a step back. And now, instead of working 50 hours a week, I'm trying to only work I'm trying to work half time, 20, but I think I'm at about 28 right now, realistically. So it's it has allowed me a freedom that I didn't think I would be able to do without actually exiting a company. And
Mhm.
so I can still be involved, and I am still highly involved. You know, she's only been with us 2.5 months right now, so we're still in a transition process. But I'm really, like, I feel free in a way that I wasn't 3 months ago.
Is there
Free to do
something
those things that I love, and free to let someone else ruminate on those puzzles, those problems that are always facing a company.
other than she can take some of your job so that you have more free time? Other than that, does she have something that she can do but you cannot?
Yeah, I think she does. You know, she has a vast world of experience in retail. I only have the last 5 years, and my experience is e-commerce, very different than retail itself. And so, like, drawing on her experience, you know, she specifically had a ton of time at Target as a key executive. Um, you know, it opens a lot of doors for us into a channel where we had no prior connections or knowledge or insight. And I think, you know, it's important for companies to, you know, everybody's talking about diversifying your supply chains right now with, you know, the coronavirus going on, but we also need to diversify our channel strategies too. Like, you don't want to be dependent on one source of income or revenue. Like, what if the next thing is, you know, some kind of cyber, you know, security that we didn't see coming, and customers are no longer wanting to buy online, but they want to buy in retail? Like, I think it's important that we all, you know, diversify as far as possible, not just our supply chains, but also our income channels as well. So
It sounds great.
yeah,
Absolutely.
she's wonderful.
For sure. So, good segue there now for us to transition onto the future of the business. Kind of the big overarching question I would ask up front is, what would you say you're most excited for moving into the future with this business?
Most excited. I think I'm most excited to bring about new products for our customers. Like, in our Vivid Vision, we talk about making sure that every mom has a comfortable nursing bra in her wardrobe. And my passion has always been about making products, that feel amazing, work, and, you know, you feel stylish and put together in. So I think I'm more excited than ever about what the future, you know, looks like in terms of how to actually have a comfortable nursing bra in every mom's wardrobe. Like, there's so much creativity there. There's so many puzzles yet, you know, unsolved. I think I'm always most excited about anything product related.
Definitely.
And we also have a pretty exciting product coming late this summer. I can't really talk about it a lot right now, but it's going to, I think it's just a really, really neat bra option for anyone who is obsessed with technology as well.
For sure. For sure. So we've hit on it a little bit. Obviously, we're in a pretty unique situation right now, and y'all being a remote company from the get-go, you're pretty well suited to working from home, avoiding the spread of disease, as would seem to be the emerging norm for this day and age. Other than the obvious virus going around right now, would you say there are any big threats or risk factors you see facing the industry you guys are in?
I really think that's the biggest one. I mean, it's hard to talk about anything else with that going on right now.
For sure.
I
Yeah,
mean,
talk about that.
supply chains are going to be disrupted in a way that I don't think any of us can really predict. Like, who would have predicted that we would all be working from our homes even 2 weeks ago? And I think like there are second and third order consequences that no one has even thought of yet. Like I was just studying with my older son, he's in third grade, and we were studying about the Middle Ages. And I hadn't realized that the plague, which was also known as the Black Death, marked the end of the Middle Ages in a lot of countries because it brought about so many different ideas and ways people thought about life and trade and what it meant to be alive. And I think things like this happen, really realize what's happening for years and years later. And I think this is going to disrupt our supply chains, where we make things, more than we even know right now. And I don't even know what that is yet. But I do think there's going to be massive changes to where and how we get goods. It's not going to just go back. It's not just going to blow over and go back exactly how it was before. Like, for example, all the people working from home right now, some of them are going to be happy when the office opens back up and others not so much. Like, what is that going to mean for our country? Like, there's definitely going to be things we haven't even thought of yet.
Absolutely. And I know you can't go into detail about it since it's not announced, but you did bring up some future technologies coming out. Is there anything that you can hint about or talk about in the world of technology that you'd either love to get your hands on moving forward or that you're really excited about right now?
I would just love to bring about this wearable technology piece for breastfeeding moms, because it's definitely something that's needed. And I hope that the current disruption in supply chains and coronavirus won't preclude us from bringing it at the end of summer as planned.
For sure. And I gotta ask, just because you're the owner, you're the founder, you're the one who started it all. If the opportunity ever arose, or if offers have already been made, would you ever want to sell the business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that every business you have to run it as though you're going to sell it, because that adds value to your company, which in turn, adds value to every part of it, including your current employees. If the opportunity ever came up, I mean, sure. I mean, everybody has, like, who of us, like, if somebody didn't just walk up to you at your house and said, "Hey, here's $10 million. I want your house." Like, it'd be silly to say, no, I wouldn't. But at the same time, I've also firmly of the opinion that a well-run company adds much more value to the world than a wealthy individual, because we're able to provide our employees a sense of work-life balance that I think is a cut above most employers. We really are encouraging with each other. We exemplify those company values of generosity. We have this program every month where employees get to give $50 to someone in need. Like whether it's food or a Kindred Bravely product, like, and those are things that you can't assure that a buyer of your company would keep on. Like, you don't have the keys anymore, so it would be a really hard choice if that opportunity presented itself, because I see a lot of I really like being able to impact the world in a positive way. And right now we can do that, through the lives of our employees and their families, through our company.
Absolutely. So, our final topic to hit on before we close out here, for the entrepreneur looking to build a business themselves or get something off the ground, what would you say would be your key points of advice for that person looking to make something happen?
Right. Well, I would say whatever you're looking at making happen, make sure you're really passionate about it and that you can really fall in love with that space, with those customers for the next 5 years, at least. Like it's been 5 years right now, and I finally feel like I can take a little of that weight off of my shoulders because of the team that we've built and put in place. But I think it's totally unrealistic to think that it's going to take less than 5 years. Like there may be some stories out there, but the majority of them, even 5 years, is on the early side. So make sure that you love and are energized by what you're getting into, because it is going to take an enormous amount of time. And so if the time that you're putting into it doesn't energize like you on a soul level, and you don't actually like get energy from working on your idea, then you should run away from it, because it's going to suck you dry otherwise. And assuming that it is something that you're passionate about making a difference in, and you do enjoy it, I think the whole idea of like work-life balance is not that it's overrated or completely unachievable, but I do think we need to rethink the way we think about balance. And maybe it's not so much like simultaneous balance, but it's like periods of balance, and recognize that you're stepping into a time of definitely increased work demands, and make sure that your relationships are ready for that. Like if you are in a brand new relationship with a significant other, this may not be the right time to start a business. Maybe it's the right time to keep with your employer for a couple of years until the other relationships in your life are ready for the rigors of starting a new business. Like I wouldn't want to give you false encouragement that it's not going to take it is going to take some resources from other parts of your life. So make sure that those are ready to give at this time. So, but other than that, like, go for it. What do you have to lose? If you're like me and you need to do a worst case analysis, like look at the options. What is your worst case? Can you live with that? Can you start over? Would that be the end of the world? And then go for it. Because the one thing that you learn is that if failure is the worst thing, and failure brings you an amount of learning that you can recover from, like these are things that can't be taken from you. So it's a rich experience in life, you know, to start something, to be in charge of it. And I would encourage everyone, you know, if you're feeling called for it, to go for it.
Definitely. And
Makes sense.
is there any quote or person or book or anything like that that you like to look to for inspiration that could potentially inspire some of these people?
Well, as I said earlier, Jeff Hoffman was a mentor of mine at a business conference, and I totally live by his phrase of don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with your customers. And I think that's really the core, because a lot of entrepreneurs maybe start with one tiny idea. I know I did, but like broadening your mind, like it's bigger than that. It's like who are the people that you're really going to serve, and approaching it from that mindset, and it will like blow open.
Absolutely. And our final catch-all question that we like to ask to truly end things on a positive note. What would you say you're most grateful for in your life at this point in time?
Oh man, I am so grateful for my family, my kids. These are my three loves right here. I got them on the back of my phone. I got my two boys and my husband. I'm so grateful for them. I'm grateful for their hugs and snuggles, and just that, you know, we get this chance to create a family.
For
Really
sure.
grateful for them.
Well, as we'll call it textbook definition of from the ground up and truly bootstrapping, it's been an absolutely inspiring story to hear. So thank you so much for sharing your journey to creating this business with us in this interview.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
It was great talking with you both.